right, we're almost live. Okay, and we are live. Good afternoon,
Okay. Woohoo.
everyone. Whatever time you're listening to this, it is so great to have you joining in this conversation. And we have another amazing guest in our midst. She's very passionate. She's very involved in the conversation. I know this because I've been speaking to her, and she's someone you really need to talk to even outside the program. She's very interesting. So welcome to the forum, Miss
Thank
Anita
you.
Adefuye.
Thank you.
All right, great to have you. So as
I'm
I
glad
said,
to be
we're
here.
here to discuss Series 3, the case, and the Venture Matrix for the Future of Africa project. And we always like to start off establishing a human connection with our guests. So, what we're talking about is kind of technical today. So let's start with what is your typical day job like? What is work for you?
Okay, so thank you. First of all, thank you, Tony, and your crew for inviting me. Thank you for bringing me on here. I do not take this lightly. Um, so my name is Anne Adefuye, or that's my official name. Unofficially, I am Anita. And yes, people at work call me Anne because that's what's on my official stuff. There's a story behind that, but that's for another day. Um, so currently, I work as a prospect development specialist with the government of Saskatchewan in Canada. I live in Regina, Saskatchewan. Um, I'm married. I have two kids, 6 and 4. And for my day job, well, I'm a public servant. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on your time zone. So for my day job as a government official, the best way I like to describe the position is to use a banking job. And I say I'm kind of like the salesperson in the bank who tries to get clients. Only in my instance, I get clients the people I'm trying to get are investors who come and invest within the province. And so our last year goal was to bring $1 billion investment into the province. And by the end of the fiscal year, we actually hit 1.2 billion. So, which is
Oh,
amazing just to see that you're a part of something that big. So it's amazing. And even within this COVID season, some of the companies that, I had done some research on and kind of matched their criteria to our economic needs, we signed investments agreements with some of them very recently during this COVID season, which is pretty amazing, to have in this time. No one mentions your name because you're this public servant, but
yeah.
just knowing that you were the silent contributor or you're a member of that group in itself is really, really amazing. I love the job that I do. So that's my day job in a summary.
All right,
Thank you.
awesome, awesome. So, in the context of this conversation, you can see her as the money woman, right? She understands the way opportunities are evaluated and how capital can flow towards opportunity. And that brings us into the first section of the segment. Now, talking about opportunity,
Mhm.
how was being an undergraduate like? How was your life as an undergraduate? Let's start from there.
Okay, so my life as an undergraduate was really interesting. Um, so I actually attended Obafemi Awolowo University.
Whoop whoop.
Shocker. No, not so shocked. And I studied international relations. My bachelor's is in international relations. Um, and my matriculation number actually says 2003, but I actually really started school in 2004. If you know anything about the OAU history, there's always been issues with strike and all of that. Now, I know on the surface it looks like a bad thing, but I'll tell you why
Mm.
it's not in a bit here. And So I started in 2004 and I finished in 2008. So I spent precisely 4 years. So I never got trapped in the whole strike delays your, time in school process. And I remember my first week. So interestingly, a story about a girl who is making a case against the school for not getting admission into medicine. Apparently, I stumbled into that story just yesterday, and I remember commenting on the OU alumni group and saying that girl's story was pretty much my story.
Mm,
I had gained admission. The only difference was I actually made top of the list. Unlike her case where the provost says she was 103 and they needed just 100 people. Now, I wasn't taken because A, there was nobody to go and push for me. And B, because they thought I was a nobody, they kind of just threw me off the list. And B, I'm from the South. I'm actually from River State, married to a Yoruba person, and I'm from the South. And part of it was also related to that. So there was some hint of tribalism in that whole saga. What they did not know was that I come from a family of fighters. We don't take things like that very lightly. And
mm,
so my dad had called up his lawyer to give the school a call and tell them, if I don't get what's due to me, they're going to get it really bad. That was the saving grace.
wow.
And so, yes, that was the saving grace. My dad threatened to sue the school. The lawyer sent a letter, and voila, my name reappeared somewhere. And when I got into school, it kind of made me popular in a not so nice way because now everybody knew this one person and my name was kind of really unique, so it was easy to single me out. And everywhere I went, I kept hearing things like, oh, you are that person, Omo Igbo that wants to come and take all our children's slots, and that was the experience that I started with. But like
Mm,
I said, I come from a family of fighters. The fighter in me refused to, let that be how I would. Like every time I walked in somewhere and you know, um, they try to bully me into something that I wasn't comfortable with, I spoke up. I said my
mm,
mind, I said my piece. Sometimes it meant they told me get out of the office. It meant they were
mm,
delaying my processes, but I didn't care because I didn't want to be that person who refused to fight for what I believed in. It's not how
mm,
I was brought up. So I went in, and at this point, shortly after I gained the admission, my dad passed. So I knew there was no
mm.
daddy to fight my battles anymore. It was up to me to fight my battles. So and that kind of synced very well with the OU fighting spirit as well, which is why I said
Luta
the stripes
continua.
might look like a bad thing on the surface, but it's not. Because
Mm,
as at this point, like I mentioned, my dad had passed and there were concerns with funding for my education. He wasn't really bothered, not because he didn't make investments, but we all know how the Nigerian system works where a man dies, family steps in and swoops everything. Well, to be honest, there was a commitment from my family to, continue paying for my education. It didn't come as seamless as it would have been if my dad was there. And by virtue of that very process, I'm actually laughing. I should hide the comments.
yeah.
Okay, by virtue of that, I knew that uh, any increment in school fees was not in my favor. And at this time, the school wanted to increase fees, but then the student union was really fighting against it. So as a
Mm,
fresh jambite, I
mm.
joined in that fight. I carried my placard. I did
Wow.
everything. If I'm not doing my registration, you're seeing me in the fighting place, and I
Mm,
joined in that fight. And that kind of sets in stone for me what my movements experience within university was going to be. Now, add to that, what I've always heard people say is don't just go through school, let the school go through you, right?
mm,
And my extended family wanted me to just be that nice girl who just went to school and did her bid and just came out of school. And then they were like, you don't have your dad anymore. So just go to school, hide your head. That's not me. Sorry. I just could not help it. All right. And if I see a cause and I believe in it and I see people are ready to fight, for me, here's the thing. If I'm not leading that fight, the least I expect from everybody else is if you see someone who is willing to take that fight and be responsible for
contribute.
it, the least you can do is join hands with them. And
Mm,
because we all did that, there were tear gases thrown at us, school shut down for a while. But because we did that, I paid that same amount of school fees that they were fighting for all through my 4 years of school.
wow.
Right now, maybe call me selfish. There was some personal, needs attached to it, but I wasn't. I went from being to have it all keyed to being a child who barely had anything, right? And I just
Mm,
had the basics. And so I knew that I needed to have that fight, not just for me, but for everyone who came after me. Now, but that being said, and with everything else in school, eventually I went on to serve in my department. I was the vice president from my in my final year. I joined a number of committees. I was on the editorial team. I was a Christian on campus, so I was very active at church as well. And but and eventually I finished with I don't know if that's really relevant, but I finished strong that way. I finished strong,
mm,
like
nice.
so quite my 4 years. But basically that's just kind of like my school life. My academics never suffered for anything. I took them as serious as I could. And you know, I'll stop kind of paint the picture of what my life on campus was like for you guys.
Wow, that was whoa. That was really exciting to learn because it strongly resonates with why we are here, right? That until we begin to ask questions, until we begin to actually put the effort to actually make our claims known, nothing will move. So, we've already spent the first 15 minutes, but you said some really interesting things that I still feel we could establish a connection with, right? Actually, how do you harness, okay, let me ask it like this. How do we raise a generation of people who see the need to stay till they get what they want? What are the special things that you think have valid, yours is that you were built that way, you were raised that way. But how do we build a generation of people that are determined, committed, and steady fighting for change that needs to occur in their local communities and their communities at large?
Okay, so let me start by saying this, right? Um, I know oftentimes in this generation, one of the buzzwords is innovation, right? But I just want to throw this out there, and at some point, I'll probably tie back to everything that I'm going to say. Innovation is just problems evolve, right? And
Hmm.
as problems evolve, solutions also have to evolve. That is
Hmm.
innovation. Because today's
Hmm.
problem, while you're seeking to solve today's problem, you have to find a way to learn to think beyond today and see, you have to step into the shoes of the problem and say, if I were this problem, what are the numerous ways that I can quickly evolve, right? And try to, um, prefer solutions thinking forward. Now, that being said, sometimes that's kind of like the starting point that we have to see. For me, when I joined that fight, and that's one piece, is that we need to learn to realize that whatever issue today, it would never be the same issue as it were tomorrow. It will magnify, it will evolve. If you
Hmm.
don't develop a sense of um, solution seeking, and I know that I haven't watched all of the videos of the series so far, but I've read the entire book that you sent to me, and I have looked at some of the other comments that people are making on LinkedIn and whatnot, and I know that not so much on solutions, but the truth is therein lies the answer. But the piece that I want to add on to that is that the problems would continue to evolve. The issue as when I got into OU, for instance, was things like the basics. You cannot increase school fees, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And we fought to make all of those things happen to what we wanted, to what we needed, right? And today, the problem, and it's in trying to solve today's problems as they are that I believe that we have this platform. Tomorrow, the problems will be different. And as we continue to have that, problem solving mindset, and by the way, it's actually one of the top skills that employers are looking for today in the world, is that you have to have a problem solving mindset. All right, that's one. And two, find a way to, you cannot fight for something that you, if you're not relatable to the issue at hand, you won't be able to fight for it. So find a way
Hmm.
to, and what that issue will be different for different people. For me, as at that time in the university, it was that, look, I don't have all the money in the world anymore. And
mm,
school fees goes beyond what, you know, my extended family can afford. Then I know that I might be in trouble. Right. And so when there was a cause that would help me, and not just
mm,
me, because now I could all of a sudden see everybody else in my shoes and say, you know
mm,
what, not just for me, but for everybody else who maybe don't have the luxury of fighting, I will be that voice for them. Right. So
mm,
when you find a way to make the problem relatable to you, it's easier
mm,
to make it your cause and fight for it.
mm,
And part of it would also mean that sometimes that we're unselfish with ourselves. So because as a
mm,
whole in Nigeria, that has been one of our major problems. It's that, well, it doesn't bother me or any member of my immediate family, so I do not care. But that
mm,
shouldn't be. What we should have is, because while it might seem like it doesn't bother you today, you don't know how it will bother your generation tomorrow.
mm.
Right. So, and as long as we're all linked in that way and you can't tell what comes up tomorrow, you want to make sure that you are part of that solution at any phase of
Today.
life. So, two things that I think I'll just
Mm,
add to that is, you know, be a problem solver, have a problem solving mindset, and find a way to make the issue at hand relatable to you. That way, it's easier to keep the fire burning.
wow. Brilliant, brilliant suggestions. Thank you so much for that. So let's jump right into the second segment, which deals with the discourse. Now, it's beautiful that we have you here today because you represent two different narratives about the same issue. So the venture matrix for the future of Africa talks about how do we create enabling environments that support the creation of value, right from that stage of our experiences in life. And the beauty about that concept also that also happens to be part of our formative years, our 20s, right? Now, why I needed to
Mhm.
mention this is right now you stay in Canada, you stay in a province in Canada, right? You were once here in Nigeria. So can you help us understand the contributing factors to the different realities that you are having or you have experienced that directly relates to an enabling environment?
Okay. So, um, honestly, there is no way I will talk about that without throwing some shade at parents. I'm sorry. To all
Awesome.
parents out there, we love you. I'm a parent myself.
Hmm.
Because the reality is that to a very large extent, it starts from there.
Hmm.
Um, I always tell people that even though I lived and grew up in Nigeria, I feel like, and I don't mean this with everybody else that I lived with. Between the ages of 11 and 16, I lived with my father. Were the only times that I actually lived with any of my parents. All right, and it was my dad that I lived with, and I feel like a lot of things that eventually formed me into the person that I am happened within that time frame, or at least the good
Hmm.
lessons of life happened within that time frame. And he didn't exactly have your typical everyday Nigerian parenting style. He didn't. So that really helped me in some sense. So I kind of like always was like the odd one out most times in many settings. Now that being said, and which is why I say that to a very large extent, it starts with the parenting, and I'll build it
Hmm.
up to the government at the top. It starts with the parenting in that I'll give you a very good instance. At a time when everybody felt if you're not studying medicine, engineering, accounting, what else? Maybe at best pharmacy, you're not studying anything or law. Aha, that's the last one, right?
Hmm.
Everybody looked at me and thought, oh, it had to be medicine or law. Medicine because we think you're brilliant. Law because you like to talk and you like to argue and you make good points and blah blah blah. And but it wasn't really my thing. And I remember going to my dad and saying, okay, it's funny, I realized what I wanted to do with myself completely at the point when I was filling my jam form. That is
Hmm.
unfair, very, very unfair to any human being, and the struggle
Hmm.
was, yeah, I know everything says law, but there has to be something more. And that's how I ended up in international relations because I love history, I love politics. My mom was a politician, and I love all of that, right? That's something that sometimes you don't see a lot of Nigerian parents do for their kids. It breaks my heart every time I see an undergraduate struggling in a certain course and they're there not because they wanted to be, but because their parents pushed them to be there. It's heartbreaking. So that's one piece where parents have to start waking up to the reality of how they are contributing to creating that enabling environment for people to, for kids to be innovative, for kids to be solution providers. And then as we begin to grow, there's a certain point to which you have to just stop blaming your parents and take ownership of your own life. Because at the end of the day, it is your future we're talking about. It is your life. For me personally, as far as leadership goes in Nigeria, I have given up, and which is why I'm enjoying this, because I believe that, and I'm sorry, but I believe that, at some point, we, the younger generation, have to take responsibility and begin to recreate from the roots what we want. And now is the planting season. May not even be here in this generation or the next generation to see all of the fruits of everything. But at least we will go knowing that we put the right things in place, and that all things being equal, everything will grow and blossom to what we really want to see. And so when you now as a person come to a point where you tell yourself, and which is why I like your undergraduate life, is because for me, it was one place where, against what my family said, oh, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, I meant no disrespect to them, but I realized that, look, there is the life that I want. And I see these moments as an opportunity to build on that life. So when they said, don't do politics in school, what else would I do? I don't play sports, right? And I can't just live the triangular life, school, church, class, church, whatever, right? And so you have to now use these moments to begin to form yourself. And then the other thing is, as far as the undergraduate communities now go, which is where the other piece is and where the school leadership now comes in, is that, and I'll give you a very good example because I did my master's here at the University of Regina, and I did a master's in public administration, and every assignment that I ever did, every policy paper I wrote, every every research paper that I did was a true life case. It was a real life case. Case studies are given to us to do, and I remember one of my papers that I defended, I had an assistant deputy minister come in, had an executive director from the government come in, right? And so even long before I began to work with, in my learning, I am exposed to everything that I need to, learn to be successful when I leave that school environment. And the same is true for not just from when they start kindergarten. My daughter right now is going to be in grade 2 when school starts, which is what, like an equivalent of primary 2 or something like that, right? And from that age, certain things they teach them and how they teach them, I'm like, if this was what school was like, I don't think a lot of people will complain in Nigeria about going to school, and to see how even from that tender age, they emphasize on extracurricular activities. It's a big deal to gaining admission here. Tell me, how can someone like that not know how to balance life and work when they come out of education, because they've been trained from infancy for that experience? And not just that, in every department you go to, the things that students have to work on are tied to real life experiences. As of right now, the people who are making waves, breakthrough, Saskatchewan is actually one of the provinces that has, moved on to testing stage or pre-testing stage for COVID vaccine. And the people who are at the frontier of these things are students, graduates, undergraduates.
Wow.
They're students from research, from the researches that they do, to the, whatever the solutions that they try to provide, not just for the local community. All right. And when it's tested within the local community, then it gets globalized. So even within the educational system, there is opportunity for students to evolve. There is opportunity for students to, innovate, because within that environment, it's a fail-safe system where if you fail, all that it requires is, let's tweak this. What can we do better? Right. And
Exactly.
so, that is something that you don't see much in Nigerian universities, where it's all about the theoretics and the books. And then you leave, then you start trying to figure out your life. And that's not, that doesn't really help anybody, because like you rightly mentioned in your book, Tony, at that age, when you come out of school, Guess what? In Nigeria, the expectation once you're a graduate is start sending money home. You have a job, you don't have, nobody cares. Start sending money home. You're done. We're done with you. We have put you through school. You do your bits, and so someone who is not trying to just get by isn't going to, someone who is just trying to get by isn't going to start thinking at that point, so what problems are there that I can solve? No, in that freshness of our minds, it starts from, it starts for them even long before university to begin to be sincere with you. But let's say peradventure somehow within our secondary school system, we're not able to do that. When it gets to the university, that's where you as an individual will now say, okay, this is what my parents expect of me to the side. This is what the reality is. And this is what I see for my future. How then can I channel myself through the university of experience to begin to, align myself for that future that I see? Your parents will be long gone, and their realities and expectations of what would be when you are in that future, it would never match up. So at the end of the day, it still comes back to you as the individual. As for the government, I guess the only thing they really can do is empower the universities through proper financing and maintenance, but we all know what that is like right now. So I'll just leave that for there for now.
Wow, this is really exciting. All of the things you've said, the questions I had in my head posed for this segment has been answered, right? So let's jump right into the strategy session, right?
Oh, wow.
Let's get practical. Yeah, let's get practical. This is really exciting. Thank you so much. So we have been able to identify that number one, the things that contribute to an enabling environment are the systems outside the school, starting from the family system, then to the educational system itself, which is actually, there's a gap between that and the real world. And then the government of
Mhm.
school and also the government, right, are not actively involved in that space. So what are the practical things that we can do as an undergraduate community to bridge that gap, first off?
Okay, so this is where I'll go back to the statement I made earlier about problems evolve and solutions have to evolve, right? Like I mentioned before, at the beginning, or at the time I got into university, what we were fighting for was different from what the experience is right now, right? And the problems have evolved. The solutions have to also evolve. Now, what we did at the time that I found out later when I started going deeper into not politics, excuse me, as I started going into policy formulation and administration was that what we did at the time was we we forced into existence a policy. Policy is just
Wow.
simply, yeah, we forced into existence a policy. Now, in my world of policy, when because I've right now, even though the work that I do right now is more research based than policy based, I've also worked in policy. I've worked in foreign policy. I worked with the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, um, and that was my last job before I moved here. And even coming here, I worked in energy during my master's degree. And more recently, I did a 6-month term on health, safety, and wellness policy as well. And so, in that world of policy, and if you look at how policies are made, there's the ideation. Now, what do you think drives the ideation of policy? What drives the ideation of policy is simply, it can be anything from either the leadership, the government, identifying a problem that they want to solve, maybe from political manifestos that they have made, promises they have made, then they, formulate policies that they seek to implement from that. Or two, the media can make so much noise about something and set
Hmm.
realities for the public to the point that government has no choice but create policies to match what the media is trying to paint.
Hmm.
Or three, the people.
Hmm.
You as a people, as a person, you can make so much noise about something to the point that, you know, in the analogy of the unrighteous judge and the widow, you can make so much noise to the point where it's peace sake, let me give these people what they want.
Hmm.
And for us in OAU at the time when they wanted to increase school fees, that was what happened. But the
Hmm.
only way at the time we knew how was to fight, because we had people like Ditma Fashino at their prime
mm,
exposed to us, and we saw the things that it did, and that's what we had to emulate.
mm.
But now problems have evolved. Now, if you try that with with the sets of students that are in school these days, I actually call you guys like the butty undergraduates, because y'all don't know how to fight. I'm sorry.
We
Just
prefer
feel like you
social
guys
media and
don't have that
hashtags.
fighting.
We prefer social
But
media and
that's the thing,
hashtags.
because there's actually more than one way to fight,
Mm,
right? There is more than one way to fight. And
mm,
sometimes the other way you fight is to present to someone something that they cannot argue with. Pen to
mm,
paper. It is
mm,
powerful.
mm,
Pen to, which is why I keep saying to you, I don't know what that book is doing, still doing in your hands, like published. All right. Yesterday I was in and out of the Leadership Guardian Summit, and it was wonderful. I saw what Kemi Ogunkoya did with her book and the launching process, and for me, right? So the more we have people who recently, I personally am an advocate for sexual abuse and women's rights, and I stumbled on Stand to End Rapes page, where I think right now there's already conversations to propose certain bills in Nigeria to protect sexual harassment for people. And sometimes those are other ways that you can create those policies, right? Is that people who, again, it has to come down to someone willing to take ownership of that fight and say, you know what, I choose to make sure that I deal with this. Dr. Ngo, not Conjoella. Is it Kwesili? She was at the summit yesterday, and I remember she said something. She said at every point, someone has to be willing to say, you know what, as far as this segment goes, I am willing to take leadership and ownership and fight this cause. And the more we have people who are taking different pieces and fighting the causes of it, the more we'll find ourselves, starting to evolve and change by bit. Now, it might take time because it's always harder when you're bottom to top. It's always easier when it's a leadership that is self-driven and visionary to want to bring about those changes. Sadly, it's not our reality in our context, in our country. It's not. So what we need to do then is, how can we drive this change from bottom to top? Because we can do that. Either we choose to, and either way, whichever one to see it, we have to fight it. Either we're fighting it through violent means, which I do not condone and I would never encourage, or we're fighting it by putting pen to paper, by people coming out to speak to things and people staying true to that cause, however that seems, and being, you know, persistent and consistent enough to, until things start to change. It's only a matter of time. After a while, people would even start to get bored with the facade that we have called leadership. Matter of time, right? People will get bored with that process. People would actually get to the point where they will be hungry for something different. That's what elected Obama into presidency. My opinion is that after a while, people got tired with the traditions, with the traditionalists, right? And so they wanted something new, they wanted something fresh. And now I guess they're reminded of why they never wanted the traditionalists to begin with. But anyway, so one of the things that we really, really, really need to work at in terms of this is, whatever area, whatever you find yourself doing something, or you find someone who's already, flagging that cause, by all means, please throw your weight behind them. It's one of the reasons why I don't know Twain from anyone, and I saw this on LinkedIn just flying around, and I'm like, this is interesting. And so I read maybe one or two of the articles that he had written, and I'm like, why is nobody making noise about this? These are the kind of things people should make noise about.
mm,
And I just thought to share. All right. And here we are today, because while I know that I cannot, as much as I love the undergraduate community, I right now am focused to other causes that won't let me fight this at the same time. But when I
mm,
see someone who is willing to, it makes sense that I throw my weight behind them in whatever way that I can. And no help is too small. All right. When you look at um I'm trying to think of an analogy to use. But if you, oh yeah, actually, I remember one time in my house, we went out, and then there was this app. and it wasn't locked up properly. And so we kind of left the water at the tap. By the time we came back home, our house was flooded.
Hmm.
We spent maybe all day out of the house. What had happened was the little drops kept adding
Hmm.
up until when
Hmm.
we came home, change happened.
Hmm.
Change had happened in our home, right?
Hmm.
And which is why I say it might take time, but we have to stay consistent and persistent. Mandela, it took 27 years.
Hmm.
And if you look through history, no change, it's either the changes happen so radically that people lose lives, or it happens, in
Progressively.
bits
Hmm.
over time.
Hmm.
So we have to make that choice. And I can tell you, in my undergraduate years, we did the whole fighting thing. If you do it now with the current presidents we have, trust me, you guys are probably going to not just get more tanks rolling around your school. You're probably going to get much more. I don't know that. Don't quote me on that, but I don't know. Just saying. But the world
Hmm.
has sort of moved a little beyond that, and right now
Hmm.
it's finding ways to put pen to paper. Oh, and one more thing is sometimes you can innovate to a point on your own that the world doesn't have a choice but give
But
you a seat at the table.
wow. Hmm.
Now, imagine people who have made groundbreaking discoveries
Hmm.
and somehow it gets out there. Now, the sad reality is that, again, back to the whole enabling community thing, you
Hmm.
may or may not have the opportunity to showcase that within the country. Maybe what will happen, as I've always happened, is the US or the UK will quickly lay claim to that person, take them away. They've done that with the ballet boy already. He's got scholarship, and then he's
Hmm.
going to go,
Hmm.
they're going to get all the glory
Hmm.
because, and they're going to get all the glory for that, right? But the truth is, this boy has presented something to the world that people didn't have a choice but to give him
Hmm.
a seat at the table
Hmm.
that is due to him. That is something that you can also do to, change the narrative. What are you going to bring that people will say, you know what, you deserve a seat? Come right here. Okay, so
Hmm.
I'll leave it at that for now.
Wow. I feel like I'm in church. Woo! All right. Thank you so much. Sorry.
You almost let me choke on my tea.
I'm sorry about that. All right. Wow. Wow. I'm phew, flustered. Okay. Now, one more thing we need to quickly address in this strategy session before we move to the last session, the forum, is you talked about the bottom top approach, right? Which means that there is, you know, let's say, we take all of this gold that you have given to us, we finally create our own enabling environment. There would still always be the need to scale this bottom to top approach. That means we would always have to contact these same people that were built these systems independent of. So how do we actually facilitate, those relationships? I mean, what is the practical way to go to facilitate relationships with not just our local stakeholders, but with the global stakeholders? Because, during our back and forth conversations, I mean, outside of here, you have always asked if, what I'm trying to do is to affect the local economy. And I always respond yes. And then you say, oh, why not think globally? And my response most times is, if we do not affect the local, right, there would be no substance
Mhm.
for us to prove ourselves at the global level. So I love that, you are not just based in Nigeria or just work in Nigeria. So you work in both worlds. How do we actually drive, what's that one? Is there a one-way approach to driving this conversation with stakeholders locally and, internationally? I hope the question was not too long.
No, 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 no. It's okay. And here's the thing. So if you recall, I mentioned earlier that like here in Canada, the experience that I have seen is, and you cited a very good example with Silicon Valley and Stanford University in your book. The experience here is that the schools create a fail-safe system.
Hmm.
It creates a fail-safe system for people. And a very good example, when I did, for me now, I'm not exactly in, personally, I am not in business personally, right? I'm more of a government person and policy person. When I did my, it was a group project that we did in trying to solve, so HIV issue among First Nation is a very big deal in my province, in this part of the world. And the project that my group and I had was to prefer solution to the issues that occur within this province. And we had to present these issues to senior government officials, and they had to buy in to it. So we did every process that you will do across the whole chain of bringing something into an existing working policy, from the research to the ideation to how you're going to measure success to how you're going to evaluate to how you're going to monitor, how you're going to execute, who the stakeholders are. We did all the works, right? And when we did all of the works, you had to, we presented, and then they give us feedback to say, this is what you should have done. This is why I, as a minister, am not going to take what you're saying seriously, or this is why, you're going to, and for me, it was really nice. I think my group, yeah, sorry, I got to brag a little bit. My group was the only group that actually got a thumbs up to say, yep, I will take that, and it was really exciting, right? But here's the thing. We still had things that we needed to work on, right? Now, moving away from that, what now happens is as you go through government and you're rising through the ranks, you have something that someone has given to you to say, this is a blueprint. As long as you're working within this blueprint, you should be good. Or these are ways that you can do this or do that next time. So we have that fail safe system where within that school period, you're allowed to fail. Because if you fail, everybody can, it's almost forgivable that you're a student, you're in a learning process. But when you were done and then you're out there in the world, you're no longer learning. So it's not going to be as forgiving, except because everybody else feels in life. And then, yes, we have all that aspire to aspire discussion that people like to do. There is that, but that's, so if you recall, I had established that fact that, there is that feel safe system. Now, to as far as scaling up is concerned, in anything you're doing, whether it's business, policy, or whatnot, you must have done, and by the way, I encourage everybody, and you can Google this, in anything you're doing, just maybe because I'm a policy person, I'm a little biased on this, but just kind of use that policy cycle to approach to anything you're doing in life. All right. What's the idea that I'm trying to work with? What's the problem I'm trying to solve? Ask that question. In that, there's a piece of it where you have to do something called stakeholder identification. Now, when you're identifying your stakeholders, when you're identifying your stakeholders, you know who they are. Once you know who they are, you want to find out who are the best playing people in this field, locally, nationally, internationally. And depending on whatever other extensions there are to your life, for example, if you're a person of faith, you want to also see who are people playing in that field that are people of faith. And that's an example, right? And you want to make sure that as much as possible, you're closely following these people. If you can reach out to them directly, by all means, please reach out. Let them know, bring them in as your mentors, bring them in as your coaches, bring them in as whatever you need to bring them in as. All right. And then that's one piece. Because what now happens when you do that is you not only have access to their years of experience of playing in that field, you also have access to the mistakes that they've made that you need to avoid. You also have access to something that works that it can, and then you also have access to their network. In one form or another, you also have access to their network directly or indirectly. Now, that's one piece. And as you begin to do that, again, remember that you have to give yourself time because it won't be a walk in the park. All right. For some of them, you might have to try and reach out to them a dozen times. Don't give up. Okay. Now, that's one piece. That's one aspect that you can use, because at the end of the day, these are the people that eventually will speak your name in the room where you will not be present. They are the ones that would say, this person deserves a seat at the table, make one for them. Those are the people. There is that. And then two, we live in a world, I love this generation, because one thing I always tell people is, if you're trying to sell something to an existing platform and nobody is listening to you, social media, create your own platform. The means for that platform is already existence. Create your own platform. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, create your own platform and start to sell yourself to the world. The beautiful thing is you can mention people, you can tag people, you can hashtag and do all of that. Create your own platform. And the more you give value to people, the more they want to hear you, the more they want to seek you out. And as you do that, you gradually continue to grow. At some point, it will probably get to someone. Now that's an informal way of doing this. And there's no one way approach. Sorry, Tony, there's actually no one way approach because different things will work, right? And there are people who have tried the whole social media piece and they got frustrated out of the whole process, right? There are people who, have tried the whole mentorship piece. In fact, there are a lot of hurting people right now who are like, I can't deal with mentors. They never have time for you. They never do this. They never respond and all of that, right? It's not always true. For me personally, at some point, I had to go and learn what it means to be a good mentee. All right, but that's topic for another day. All right, but it's not always the case, right? So yes, sometimes it might not all, and sometimes you might have to try a mix and match of those different things. So create your own platform, bring in, sell it to the world. All right, and then the other thing is if there is a way that you can, you can, and that's another thing, is that sometimes we're in so much a hurry to make money and make good money, and money is good. I love money. I'm a Christian, and I'm sorry, please forgive me if you're not Christian, please forgive me, but I just have to say this. Even the Bible says that money answers all things, and that nobody wants to listen to the word of man. It's in the Bible. If you're Christian, look it up. If you're not, again, my apologies, but that's to tell the extent to which it is important, right? But that being said, the love of it should not be what is driving you. It's okay to want to make income, but much more than that, seek to make impact.
Mm.
Much more than wanting to make income, seek to make impact. Now, because, and the reason I say that is one of the ways you can also create a fail-safe system for yourself, and which is why I now appreciate what you're doing, Tony, with this, is that within, say, let's say you're in OAU, within the IFE community, you can say, I have identified this problem. And the
Mm.
problem is that people don't like washing beans to make moi moi. How can we help solve that problem? And then there's
Mm.
that woman who has to feed her family by making moi moi or frying akara every morning. It is
Mm.
painful that she has to wake up 4 a.m. every day. What can
Mm.
I do to make sure that all she has to do is press a button, ping, and then voila, beans is ready. And then she can
Mm.
move on to make her akara and make more money in so little time, efficient, effective, and make her money. And even much more without losing her fingers to years of washing beans every morning.
Mm.
Now decide to go out there and give that, to some extent, some free services.
Mm.
Or say you're someone who seeks to, if you're a policy person like me and you're like, I want to change policies, I want to change the narratives, right? You
Mm.
can decide to say within the university system, there are people who've been, say, sexually abused. There are
Mm.
lecturers who try to, get students to sleep with them for grades. By the way, I have a story on that one, but anyway.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And then it's everywhere. I'm sure every lady has a story to tell. Guys, I'm sure you also have a story to tell of how someone tried to steal your girl, but anyway, or they try to get money out of you. You know, you can say, okay, within this platform, within the school, I will identify those ladies or identify those people. What are the things that we can do to change the narrative? And then you begin to do it and you go into the effect community and you're educating girls within the schools there to say, look,
Mm.
that you don't have money today does not mean that you today just to get by and then,
Mm.
make mistakes later in life. You're providing impact, right?
Mm.
And as you're providing the impact, you have all these tools, social media and stuff that you can use to bring in other stakeholders, collaborators to say, I am working on this, come and work with me. Or
Mm.
how can we, create partnership? There are forums, there are programs, there are, summits. Attend those things. That's where you'll meet people. There really is
Mm.
no collaboration without networking. All
Mm.
right. So one of the things of And that's another key thing, networking. All right. And you can network not by, and please, if you're here and one of those people on LinkedIn, you send a request, someone responds, and then the next thing is stop. Or hey baby, please stop it. If I'm not just on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, please just stop it. Okay? Because the truth is, especially in a platform like LinkedIn, you want to be as professional as possible. Nobody's going to take you seriously if you yourself don't take yourself serious. Okay?
Mm.
I'm sorry, I make jokes a lot.
It's fun. It's fun. Please keep it up. Woo.
So
Okay.
but you want to make sure that you network, okay? You can't, and when you're networking, just be very out straight to the point. This is who I am. This is what I do. Thanks for the accept. If you're one of those people who like to, acknowledge a connection request, it's beautiful. By all means, please do it. Thank you for the connection. This is what I do. I look forward to us, collaborating and shared ideas and whatever. All right. So please, these are some of the things that you can do. Nobody's going to nobody's coming to your rescue to say, oh, this is you have potential, so therefore come and take. You will birth that potential and say, this is what I have to offer. You have to at least give
Mm.
something. All right.
Mm.
And not just give something. And here's where a lot of people sometimes also miss it, is that they do it one day, 2 days, and then they're like, oh well, nobody cares.
Mm.
People have to, they watch you for a while to see how
Mm.
consistent you're going to be. How serious
Mm.
is this person? And the
Mm.
more they watch you and see that you're constantly trying to innovate, you're constantly trying to evolve, there's that word again. The more they see
Mm.
that, then they say, okay, let's listen to what they have to say. Maybe they're really serious about this. All right. And when you yourself even begin to do that, even you as the individual, you begin to evolve. Your mind gets
Mm.
clearer, you see things
Yeah.
better. And then you
Yeah.
begin to see how else you can apply this. And then
Mm.
gradually, one day you go from just trying to help one girl who you found that was maybe raped or sexual abuse, to now being someone who is mentoring thousands and hundreds of thousands of girls. All
Mm.
right. And someone is funding that project so that you can be that voice of impact in those people's lives. And guess what? With
Mm.
that, naturally, it's only a matter of time. The money will flow, the income will flow with it. Okay. Wherever impact goes, trust me, income follows. It might
Mm.
take a while, but when you want to start from the income, if you're not careful, you're definitely just going to start from impact. But when you start from the place of impact, income will follow. So you want to scale, network, find
Mm.
people who are in that field, find ways to collaborate with them, to connect with them, um, seek to create impact and not just want to make money. All
Mm.
right. And in whatever ways that you can, find opportunities to, create your
Mm.
own safe systems and find opportunities to provide free services of those so that you can learn from your mistakes and see
Mm.
how you can do better.
Wow.
I
Woo.
rest
This is so fun. This is so exciting. Thank you so much. We have used up our allocated time, so we can take the forum right now
we have.
to round it up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have like five. Okay, we have 20 more minutes because it's an hour, 15 minutes, but I always work with 1 hour, so that's why. So we're gonna round up with this
It's fine. If
with the
there are
forum.
questions, I'm willing to take them.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So please, if you have questions, you can start. Don't share them yet. Let's be done so that you don't create distractions. Then would spare 1, 2, 3 questions, to just attend to that. So for the forum now, in the forum, we always discuss what is the one thing we need to commit our efforts, time, and resources and strength to that would tie up all of the things we've learned today. So if I were to think through what we've learned today, we've learned how to drive the change, put pen to paper. We've learned how to create a relationship with multi-stakeholders. We've known how to identify the issues affecting our enabling environment and what we should do about it. We've seen why we need to take up responsibility to innovate for our own problems, for us to get a seat at the table. So what is that one thing that ties all of these things we've learned together, that as we drop this call, we can start to work on almost immediately?
So, if okay, I don't know if I can just say one thing, but here's the thing. For one thing, it will be that identify where your greatest area of impact can be
Wow,
and get to
brilliant.
work.
Whoa.
Identify where your greatest area of impacts can be and get to work. And
Mm,
just keep working at it until things actually start to change, until that bucket is full and the house is flooded.
mm.
Get to work. Find it and get to work.
Wow,
Yeah.
brilliant.
So one thing. That's one
Wow,
thing.
but that was very short, concise, and powerful. So thank you so much. One of the cultures that we, if you've noticed that we really support in the program is that we cannot change narratives if we do not master the narratives we already have, right? And we need to always share our stories. And I really love that you highlighted that, right? So, as a special gift to us, because I know you a little personally now over this short time, I know you're passionate about something else aside policy. And I would like you to share a bit of that story and how can participants in the program get to connect with you, aside all these bang bang big English that I've been speaking. What are the other things that you're really passionate about that we could connect and establish human connection with you? What other stories are you telling when you are not being the prospect specialist, special prospect development specialist in Canada?
Also, I blog, and my platform is loudsilences.com. And as the name implies, or my catchphrase for that is undoing the culture of silence. And specifically two areas that I tend to hone in on is sexual abuse and mental health. And I'm a survivor myself of sexual abuse. And with that, if you've been through any traumatic experience, you know very well that mental health issues come with that. It's a complete package.
Mm,
And but unfortunately, it's two packages that we don't like to talk about. All right.
mm,
You hear of cases, nobody wants to talk about those things. People blame and shame the victims instead of, helping them. And sometimes, again, parents sometimes can contribute to these things. And so for me, I have made it my personal business to force people's hands and minds to think about it and talk about it and, seek to create change about it. And so yeah, so I write about sometimes I write through stories and sometimes I just share insights on things. So if that's an area for you, or you're in that space, or you know someone, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to. I'm also in the process of trying to scale that myself. All right. So,
yeah.
and I don't try to do it alone, because honestly, nobody can do any of these things alone. That's where your collaborators come in. So I make efforts to network with people who are already playing in that space, people who have organizations. I don't live in Nigeria, so there's really not much I can do in terms of being there physically to get my hands dirty in the trench, but I can support people who are doing that. And I try to do that from bringing them in and having them share their experiences and discussions. And I also try to do that by, in whatever form I can support them and their organizations. I also do that. And sometimes we just have discussions and share ideas where, I provide um, counsel on maybe something they need to deal with. So yeah, that's what I do on a personal notes. And the other thing also is, I don't think you know that I didn't tell you this, but I actually coach teenagers.
Whoa.
Yeah, I
Okay.
coach and mentor teenagers. That's mostly faith-based within my church
Mm.
actually, but yeah, I do coach and mentor teenagers. We just completed our summer reading club yesterday. So 3 books, and hopefully they're ready for the school year. So yeah, that's
Wow.
that's kind of what I do.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Anita Adefuye, for such a brilliant, memorable session. I have been impacted, and I cannot thank you enough for honoring this invitation and having you spared 1 hour. Guys, do you know how much 1 hour in Canadian government time this has been? If we're to analyze how much money this cost, right? Maybe you'll be able to properly appreciate this. So I cannot appreciate you enough. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that we're friends now,
Thanks,
and
Ren.
I can always just connect with you. So, okay. So, Miss Anita used up her time pretty well. So we have 15 minutes, but I don't want us to take too much of our time. So if anybody has questions, we're just going to take 2 or 3 questions and then we'll round up for today. I'm going to go to the comment section. So now you can start asking questions. I know the comments might have flooded every other person's questions. That's why I said you should not ask it then. But you can ask your questions now and I can check them out. And thank you so much, everyone, for the energy so far.
Thank you,
Right.
guys. I appreciate all the love. I appreciate the um well, I appreciate everything. I'm trying to read some of the comments, but it's coming in so fast. But thank you.
Yes. So, okay, another thing is actually because of, so how we had planned this session is to make it very practical. So it's actually normal if people don't have questions pertaining to this session, because we are going, like now, next month, we're going to start an actual policy campaign. My team has been drafting, we've been in ideation stage. What are the pain points we need to address? So that is when we would actually start having more questions. So right now, we're still internalizing all you've said and, just painting pictures in our mind and thinking, right. So I bet most people might not have questions, but we're still going to give people maybe a 5-second countdown to see
You
if
know,
anybody has
yeah.
questions.
As
Okay.
far as the policy drafting piece goes, let me share something to encourage you. And I think I shared with you, Tony, briefly. So recently, I don't know how many of us are aware, but the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, it's a research institute. They worked with a number of stakeholders and collaborators, and now we have a robust sports policy. It involves the economics of sports. It involves revamping the sports industry in Nigeria. It involves sports entertainment. It involves how we can synchronize and synergize sports and education in our what's it called, in our universities and secondary education, even down to primary. It's really robust. I read the policy myself and I provided some feedback. And one thing I want to say is that I happen to know two of the people who actually worked alongside that policy were cousins of mine from two reports. And when I saw that policy come to life and it was submitted to the Minister of Sports and Youth Development, and the commitment that I see coming from that leadership. Again, this is a very good success story of the bottom to top approach. And I just thought I'd share that to just encourage your group to say, if they can do that within the sporting industry, I know that we can do this. We can do it. There's the law of the first, which is that all it takes is for us to get it right one time and we can always replicate, right? So I am very, very optimistic. Haven't seen that sporting policy. Remember that it's one thing to build a policy and it's complete. There's evaluation process in it. There's measurement process in it, right? But it will take time to now implement. The prayer now is that we don't have a government that comes in and stifles that effort. But it's also built in a way that promotes P3s, private-public partnership, right? So it will be harder something like that when there's private investment involved. Okay. So I just thought to share that as a means of encouraging us. I encourage you, if you haven't read I think the policy was put out for public opinion at some point. And I'm not sure. I can find out and get back to you, Tony, on where it is. And if anybody is interested, I can share with you. But I encourage you to read it. And even your group might maybe learn a thing or two from that policy that was written up for the sporting industry, but let's be encouraged, people. Change is coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much. There's been so much excitement in the comment section. I don't think we have questions. As I said, you're definitely going to see more of us. We're still going to have a lot of conversations. So thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for lending your voice to this resource bank for young people who are excited about, their active participation in shaping the narrative of Africa from now into the future. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. We cannot wait to have the next session on. So this is the final session for Series 3, the case. We're really excited to talk. So next week, we're going to start talking to investors. So we've talked to people in government. We had Mr. Ayokunu, who works with the vice president yesterday. So now we've had someone who works with the Canadian government in Saskatchewan. So it's really exciting. Next week, we're going to talk to investors. Why don't they give us money?
Saskatchewan
So it's going to be
government.
really...
Sorry.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry about that mix-up.
Sorry, I
Yes,
had to stop
Saskatchewan
you. It's a
government.
big deal here. So please, the feds to the province, it's a big deal. So we have to get it right.
Okay. So please,
The
province people
Saskatchewan
listening to
government.
me, yeah, so province people listening to me in the future or right now, forgive that error. We're still learning. So thank you so much once again. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Someone asked for my social media handles, so I'm just going to put that. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Just put that in the
Okay.
comment section.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate being here. Thanks again, Tony, for the opportunity.
All right, awesome. Do take care, man.